Monday, September 10th, 2001. In New York, it is raining heavily, and life proceeds in the routine rhythm of the first full work week after the summer break. But while most of America sleeps or prepares for the next day's work, alarm bells are sounding on global stock markets, indicating a deeply ominous foreknowledge. 23 hours and 50 minutes before the disaster, the Wall Street bet. In the afternoon hours of September 10th, the U.S. stock options market witnessed something extraordinary and statistically abnormal. An extraordinary number of trades known as put options were executed, representing bets that the stock price of a specific company would fall. These bets were exclusively targeting two airlines, American Airlines and United Airlines. The largest imbalance was observed at American Airlines, where over 80% of all orders were puts, a disbalance that sources claim had never been seen before. Typically, options trades are relatively balanced. This frequency of bets on stock prices falling immediately before the catastrophe points to probable insider trading. Someone must have known what was coming. After the attacks, American Airlines stock fell by 39%, and these bets generated a total profit of over $5 million. What is most intriguing, according to reports, this multi-million-dollar profit remained unclaimed in the Chicago Exchange account. The fact that the investors, or those behind them, did not appear to collect the money lends weight to the theory that the traders were directly linked to Al-Qaeda, or were informed by them. If the goal were purely financial profit, the money would have been collected. Their ignoring of a multi-million-dollar profit suggests that anonymity was the absolute priority, directly linking this financial anomaly to the attack's logistical plan. 16 hours before the disaster, routine in the WTC. While something unprecedented is happening on Wall Street, life continues in the World Trade Center, WTC. The WTC complex, the center of financial life in Manhattan, was home to 7 buildings in the 2 Twin Towers. On the highest floors, at the windows on the World Restaurant, managers are preparing for the autumn season, discussing overtime and new menus. For many people, it was just another Monday, albeit with a dark premonition. A former FBI agent, celebrating his retirement in the city that night, told friends that he believed a terrorist attack is coming soon, is coming soon, is coming soon. 12 hours before the disaster, final coordination. Throughout Monday night, the 19 al-Qaeda hijackers finalized their logistical preparations. They returned all remaining mission funds, a total of about $26,000, via wire transfer to their logistics coordinator in the United Arab Emirates. This action marks the end of their material needs and confirms that the plan is finalized. The teams are deployed to the cities from which they are scheduled to depart. The team for Flight 77, headed for the Pentagon, checks into a hotel in Herndon, Virginia, near Dulles Airport. The team for Flight 93, which was intended to hit the White House or the Capitol, is in Newark, New Jersey. 8 hours before the disaster, the Portland mystery. The coordinator of the entire attack, Mohammed Atta, carries out the final, most confusing logistical step. After coordinating the operation from Florida and Baltimore, he arrives in Boston. However, instead of spending the morning in Boston, Atta picks up Abdulaziz al-Omari and drives to Portland, Maine. Officially, the reasons for this last diversion remain unknown, but analysts hypothesize that Atta deliberately chose to undertake this additional logistical complication to fly from a smaller, more relaxed airport in Portland with a connecting flight to Boston, to bypass the stricter security screening at the larger Logan Airport. He planned to return to Boston via a domestic flight and then board the international Flight 11. This dual screening, although risky, may have been a calculated move to introduce key items without excessive scrutiny. 2 hours and 59 minutes before the disaster, the last footage, 5:45 a.m. On September 11, 2001, at 5:45 a.m. local time, Mohammed Atta and al-Omari passed through security at the Portland International Jetport in Maine. In the surveillance camera footage, he is dressed in a blue shirt, showing no signs of nervousness. This routine transition, captured by the screening equipment, is one of the last visual evidences of their deadly steps, just hours before boarding their fatal flight. They board the connecting flight to Boston. 47 minutes before the disaster, takeoff, 7:59 a.m. At 7:59 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 takes off from Boston's Logan International Airport, bound for Los Angeles. On board are 76 passengers, 11 crew members, and 5 hijackers, including Mohammed Atta. 31 minutes before the disaster, the second plane, 8:15 a.m. Just 16 minutes later, at 8:15 a.m., the second plane takes off from Boston, United Airlines Flight 175, also heading to Los Angeles. It carries 51 passengers, 9 crew members, and 5 more hijackers. 27 minutes before the disaster, the first alarm, 8:19 a.m. Aboard Flight 11, the hijacker seize control. At 8:19 a.m., flight attendant Betty Ann Ong heroically manages to contact ground personnel and warn them of the hijacking. Her report is chilling. A man in first class has his throat slashed, and 2 flight attendants have been stabbed, 1 seriously injured. The chaos in the air is already undeniable. The plane makes a sharp turn to the south. 40 seconds until the disaster. At 8:46 a.m., immediately before impact, flight attendant Amy Sweeney, still on the line with flight control, gives final hysterical reports. "We are flying low. We are flying very, very low. We are flying way too low. Oh my God, we are way too low."
Building, we're flying low. We're flying very, very low. We are flying way too low. Oh my God, we're...
Can you hear me? Amy? Amy, can you hear me, Amy?
The moment of the cataclysm, 8:46 a.m., the first impact. At 8:46:40 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower, WTC-1, striking floors 93 to 99. All passengers and crew, along with an unknown number of people in the building, are killed instantly. On the ground, people in the complex react instinctively. Employees in the neighboring building, 6 WTC, who had previous experience with the 1993 bombing, immediately begin evacuation, although the official alarm has not yet sounded. As one employee recalls, the first sound was like the loudest bang I ever heard, followed by a shower of debris. 9:03 a.m. The shock live, just 17 minutes after the first impact, at 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 crashes into the South Tower, WTC-2. This second impact is tactically brilliant, yet morbidly strategically timed. The 17-minute interval ensured that all news agencies, helicopters, and amateur videographers were already focused on the North Tower. As a result, the collision of Flight 175 was captured live, turning the national shock into a global televised tragedy. This deliberate action maximized the psychological trauma for millions of viewers worldwide, ensuring that the images of terror were seen as they unfolded. Passengers on Flight 175, including Peter Hansen, managed to call their families immediately before the impact, conveying the horror of their final moments. 9:16 a.m. Chaos and confusion. While New York is burning, the hijacking of the third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, en route from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles occurs. The plane begins making unauthorized turns, heading toward the capital. The defense of U.S. airspace was paralyzed. Responsibility was split between the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, which controls civil aviation, and NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, whose primary task was to respond to external attacks. The absence of a clear protocol for dealing with an internal threat, civilian aircraft used as weapons, caused a fatal delay. At 9:21 a.m., a critical confusion occurred. Air traffic control received an erroneous report that Flight 11, which had already crashed, was still airborne and heading toward Washington, D.C. Fighter jets from Langley Air Force Base were scrambled, but without clear engagement orders and without being informed that a hijacking was underway. The military pilots flying aimlessly were a consequence of a doctrine focused on defending against external rather than domestic threats. This systemic paralysis allowed the third hijacked aircraft to reach its target. 9:37 a.m. The third impact. At 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense in Arlington, Virginia. 9:45 a.m., closing the sky. At 9:45 a.m., nearly an hour after the first impact, the FAA makes the unprecedented historical decision to completely close the national airspace, ordering all civilian flights to land at the nearest airport. The American sky is completely empty for the first time. 10:03 a.m., the heroic revolt. At 10:03 a.m., although this event occurs 17 minutes beyond the 1-hour time frame, it is crucial to the story. United Airlines Flight 93, which was likely headed for the White House or the Capitol, crashes into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The passengers, learning about the events in New York via mobile phones, heroically fought back against the hijackers and managed to bring the plane down before it could reach its target. All 44 people on board perished. After the disaster, the collapse, 10:28 a.m. The consequences of the initial hour are swift and irreversible. At 9:59 a.m., the WTC South Tower collapses, less than an hour after impact. At 10:28 a.m., after burning for 102 minutes, the North Tower collapses, completing the destruction of the complex. By 10:50 a.m., a section of the Pentagon collapses due to the fire. The entire world, watching the chaos unfold live, is witness to the deadliest terrorist attack on American soil. Conclusion: the irreversible legacy. The September 11th attack, which turned an ordinary Monday into the most tragic Tuesday in U.S. history, claimed the lives of 2,977 victims, excluding the 19 terrorists. The 24-hour period before the attack reveals a precise, coordinated operation aimed not only at causing physical destruction, but also maximum psychological trauma through the strategically timed second impact. The discovery of financial anomalies on Wall Street, which likely indicate foreknowledge, remains one of the darkest questions surrounding the attacks, while the fact that the U.S. military defense was paralyzed by its own protocols allowed the attack on the Pentagon to be virtually unobstructed. Life in America and the world was set on a new trajectory. The attacks resulted in drastic changes to aviation security, the establishment of stricter security policies, and the creation of permanent flight restriction zones around strategic locations. This hour and the days that followed initiated the global war on terror, changing the definition of security and surveillance across the Western world. If you found this critical timeline insightful, please like and subscribe to 24 Hours Critical for our next historical deep dive, and we'll see you in the next video.